convicted of fraud and barred from public office. The end of the road, it would seem, for Marine Le Pen's presidential ambitions. She may appeal, but that's not likely to allow her to run for the presidency in 2 years' time. So, what are the implications? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Adrian Finighan. The face of France's far right, Marine Le Pen, left court early, and so it would seem the French presidential race. Her lifetime's political ambition appeared to be in ruins as a judge handed down a conviction for fraud that bars her from public office for 5 years and the presidential election in 2 years' time. Le Pen was found guilty of embezzling more than $3 million worth of political funding. That fraud involved transferring money allocated by the European Parliament for use instead by her National Rally Party domestically. Payments to fake employees were part of a scheme used to hide the scam. So what's been the reaction to the verdict and what are the political implications? We'll discuss all of that with our guests in just a moment. But first, a report from Lara Marlowe.
Marine Le Pen, France's leading far-right politician, storms out of a Paris court before the judge finishes reading a verdict of guilty. Her hopes of becoming France's first far-right president derailed by a court convicting her of embezzling European Parliament funds and banning her from public office for 5 years. She was convicted of misusing more than $3 million paid to her party to fund its work and officials in the European Parliament. Instead, the cash was redirected illegally to her National Rally Party in France for use in domestic politics. She refused to speak until later, claiming the judgment was a dark day for democracy.
Ce qu'elle fait là, c'est qu'elle dit
what the judge is doing here is she's saying, I'm going to make you ineligible straight away, and I'm doing it precisely to stop you from being able to be an elected president. If that's not a political decision, I don't know what is.
Le Pen's lawyer says she will appeal. Members of other parties accuse her of hypocrisy.
She's a citizen like any other and must first and foremost, especially as someone aspiring to the highest office, the presidency, recognize that her position requires exemplary conduct. She should be even more aware of this, since she has often criticized everyone else, claiming that the RN was exemplary while others were not.
National Rally President Jordan Bardella has called the case a democratic scandal, urging supporters to peacefully protest. The 29-year-old protégé of Le Pen is a rising star in French politics. Le Pen's conviction may lead to him becoming the party's candidate for presidential elections due in 2027, although he's faced criticism for lacking experience and focusing more on his popularity than rebuilding the party. Former President François Hollande says the independence of the judiciary should be respected and that it was open to Le Pen to appeal. Le Pen is able to continue as a member of France's National Assembly but cannot run again if it dissolves. After aiming for the leadership of the French Republic, her sudden fall plunges her political future into uncertainty, and her party as well as France will now have to grapple with the consequences. Lara Marlowe, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Let's bring in our guests. Diane De Vignemont is an independent journalist specialising in French politics and history. She joins us from Paris. Philippe Marliere is Professor of French and European Politics at University College London. He joins us from London. And Lara Marlowe is a Paris-based author and journalist. She joins us today from Dublin. A warm welcome to you all. Diane, let's start with you. Is this the end of Marine Le Pen's political career? Is there any way back for her from here? And what are the implications for her party?
Hi, thanks for having me. It's difficult to say yet whether this is the end for Marine Le Pen. She has several options. She could appeal. So if she manages to appeal quickly, she could, and she wins her appeal, she could potentially still run for president. If she manages to appeal quickly but loses the appeal, then she can be president, but she might stay a figurehead of the party. There's also the option that she just can't manage to fit in the appeal within the 2 years before the election, in which case she definitely can't run, and she'll be replaced by someone from her party as presidential candidate, which will put her role at the head of the party in jeopardy. So for her, it's quite a hard blow. For the rest of the party, it's a bit more complex. I think we'll probably discuss with the other guests, but it might actually be a good thing for the National Rally to be able to distance itself from the Le Pen name, which carries quite a bit of baggage. And so potentially without her as, without her running for president, they could have someone with a broader appeal. So it might actually end up being quite a surprise gift for the RN. I'm sure we'll discuss.
Professor Marliere, where do you stand on this? Is this the end of Marine Le Pen's political career? What legal options are actually open to her now? How would she go about appealing the court's decision? On what grounds can she appeal?
I think she said she would appeal, so the appeal is on. She will appeal, but it takes time to prepare an appeal. I think it's estimated between 1.5 years and 2 years for the appeal to eventually be scheduled. And then there will be another trial, which will take weeks. So that might, in fact, even if there's a sort of very speedy route to the appeal, which is not certain, let's imagine there is one, that might clash, in fact, with the ongoing presidential campaign, which is due to happen in the spring 2027, so exactly in 2 years' time. So it seems the window for Le Pen to appeal, and she said she would, is extremely limited, and I don't think she will manage to get the appeal, the sentence revised or re-examined on time for her to run again. It seems that it's very unlikely that she'll be able to run this time round.
Lara, has she, as some have argued, been unjustly treated by the judges? Has the law in her case been applied too harshly because of who she is and what she represents?
The judge certainly was severe in the sentence because she used the maximum sentence requested by the prosecutor, which is sort of unusual. But the judge is independent. The law is the law. 57% of French people polled in last night said they agreed with the sentence. And because the RN, the far right, is always demanding tougher sentences, for example, for immigrant youths, it seems sort of ironic that now that she has been through due process through a French court, she is protesting against the result. It's interesting, too, that several of her colleagues or her fellow politicians, including Prime Minister François Bayrou, said they were troubled. That was his exact word. He was troubled by the verdict. Bayrou's party, the Modem, stood trial for the exact same offense. He was let off, but 8 of his party members were convicted. And it's assumed that there's a little bit of nervousness because this was a fairly common practice among political parties to use the European Parliament funds to finance party work back home in Paris. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the far left leader, also criticized the sentence against Marine Le Pen. Now, they are on opposite poles of the French spectrum, but Mélenchon's party was also investigated for the same offense. So it's interesting that they're sort of hanging together. The fact is, her party members, her followers, and there's a bit of a personality cult around her, her party members will say that she is a victim, that this is unfair, this is a denial of democracy, and it may make them more militant, more extreme, and that is the big danger, I think.
Diane, as Lara was saying there, that was that survey where 57% of the French public said that they felt that the verdict was fair. Is there any basis to these claims that are being thrown around now that the French courts are politicized? Do people in France feel that their courts are politicized?
A lot of people in France do feel that their court are politicized, but the court is independent, and so is the law. Yesterday on TV, Marine Le Pen herself refused to say that the conviction was instructed by anyone. She didn't want to say it on TV that this had been planned by anyone else. She hinted that the verdict was political, but she refused to say, who would have instructed the magistrates to go this way or that way. So she's also being quite careful. But there's this feeling, which I think this is only going to increase, that the judicial is against the national rally. This is not the first time that this has happened. And they will definitely be able to harp on these claims, that they don't want us in power, to become more militant, to become more activist. And so I think that's definitely something to watch out for. There's already been several threats made on the life of yesterday the judges who delivered this ruling. So we're about to hear, I'm sure, in France more on the relationship between French people and their judges, because there's a lot of strong feelings there.
Philippe, the court ruled on a non-political issue of embezzlement involving the administration of her political party, as we heard in Laura's report. She argues the court was determined to block her political ambitions. But as former President François Hollande pointed out, that the courts in France are independent. Is this then Le Pen simply trying to turn the verdict to her political advantage, and will she continue to do so?
Yes, I think the only side which is politicizing that case is Le Pen's side and anyone supporting her, because the role of a judge is not to politicize a case, but to look into a case and and if there is, as it is the case here, misappropriation of public fund, to convict the people involved. And that's what they did. And they did it in line with a jurisprudence going back several years. So I don't think it's anything new there. And it also it just applied strictly a law passed by lawmakers. People like Marine Le Pen in 2016, that law, it was an anti-corruption law, very extensive. And when you read, and I suppose I would encourage lots of people passing judgment, particularly criticizing the judges today, to read the report, the judgment, very detailed, 152 pages. I haven't read all, but I've read at least significant parts. And it's very clear that there's been misappropriation of public funds. It was an organized system for a long period of time, 12 years. Le Pen knew about it. And that system, the judges say, gave an unfair advantage to the national rally. When you misappropriate public fund to pay for political assistance. And in that case, those were scam jobs, very well paid jobs, by the way, for an amount of 5 million euros in total, spreading over a period of 12 years. Very well paid jobs, 5,000 euros paid monthly for part-time parliamentary assistance, up to 10,000 euros paid for parliamentary assistance, working full-time, working in that scam job, of course. So I don't think the French public, knowing that, will feel lots of sympathy for Le Pen and a party, because I think there's a lot of cynicism, in fact, that will certainly strengthen the cynicism in the public with regard to the political class. And this is too bad for Le Pen, because she presented herself all those years as the kind of white knight of French politics, hammering her opponents about corruption. So I think she's given now a stick to opponents to be beaten with, and that's exactly what's happening now.
Lara, do you agree with that? Voters unlikely to see her as a victim in the way that, say, President Trump has portrayed himself. They're likely to dismiss her as yet another corrupt French politician.
I'm not so sure. I was thinking as Philippe was talking that we thought Donald Trump was finished. I remember after he lost the 2020 election, discussing with American friends, I'm afraid he might come back. And they said, no, don't be ridiculous. That's absurd. That's impossible. And certainly with Marine Le Pen's father, Jean-Marie, who just died in January, by the way, many times he was written off. He was finished. It was all over. And I remember very clearly the 2002 election when he made it to the runoff for the first time. And it was the same terms that are being used now were used then, an explosion, in politics, an earthquake, a clap of thunder. It was a huge story in France. And he owed that to the events of 9/11. It was because suddenly people in France were afraid of Muslims, that he shot up in popularity. And Marine Le Pen has also known a lot of just incredible developments. I mean, the debate in, I think it was, I can't remember if it was 2017 or 2022, and she had an ophthalmic migraine headache and came across just as totally useless in a debate with Macron because she couldn't see straight and she was seeing wavy lines, zebra stripes in front of her eyes. And she recovered from that. I remember her being written off after she lost that election. Everyone said she was finished. And yet she keeps coming back. The Irish say it's hard to kill a bad thing, which may be a bit cruel, to say, but I wouldn't write her off yet. I certainly wouldn't. And I also wouldn't write off Jordan Bardella because he's a very articulate and charismatic young man. The big reproach made against him is that he's only 29 years old and he lacks political experience. But when Macron was a candidate in 2017 for the first time, everyone said he has no political experience. And it's true, Macron had never been elected to political office at all. And Bardella has been elected twice to the European Parliament. So I think we're just entering a totally unknown time in French politics. Both Macron and Le Pen, it looks like now anyway, will be out of the race. And this will be the first time in a decade that we will have neither Macron nor Le Pen. And if Le Pen is not allowed to stand, which looks like it will probably be the case, this will be the first time since 1988 that there will not be a Le Pen on the ballot of the presidential election. So this is a time of huge transition in French politics.
Diane, does Bardella have what it takes to lead the party and keep voters? Does he have what it takes without Le Pen to win the presidency, even if she's pulling the strings from behind the scenes?
It's going to be interesting to watch. I'm not sure I can answer. I think he has a lot going for him. I think his age might be going for him. He's 29. He'll be 31 by then. And yes, he lacks political experience, but as Laura said, he's held office, and also being that young means that you have, fewer years to accumulate, scandals. So he's a bit cleaner than a few of them. He's also extremely strong with young voters on social media in particular. We spoke about it at length here as well on Jazeera in July when we had legislative elections. He's very, very strong on social media, and he's bringing in young voters that Marine Le Pen is having a harder time bringing on. He doesn't have a Le Pen name, so he's not associated with the early days of the party. He's not associated with World War II collaboration, torture in Algeria, anti-Semitism, Holocaust denial. He's quite free from all of that. He's really also quite perhaps overplayed, but he's definitely played on his more modest background, which is playing very well. But I think we also have to be careful not to discount, the crisis of succession that is inevitably going to happen within the RN. Yes, he is her protégé, but there's a lot of people who might want the job. It might be Marion Maréchal Le Pen, so her niece, the granddaughter of Jean-Marie. She does have a Le Pen name. She is also a woman, which has hindered Marine a little bit, but she is polling quite well. Éric Ciotti, who left the Republican Party this summer to join the RN, might also want to put his foot in the door. So we have to sort of watch out for this crisis of succession and not immediately bet on Bardella, I don't think.
Philippe, away from her party, who benefits most politically from what's happened to Le Pen?
It's hard to tell. And first of all, I should like to say that I don't write anyone off, and certainly not Marine Le Pen. She's only 56, by the way. She may make a comeback once sentence has been, she after 5 years, it's only a 5 year. She's banned for 5 years from running in a public political office. So she might be back, yes, indeed. And the attention span in politics is very limited. So people tend to forget very, very quickly. The point is very hard to tell who will benefit from the current situation. It's certainly a blow for the National Rally in general, because Le Pen was the unchallenged leader in the party. It's a very, running a party very, very top-down manner. So now that will open the floor to all kinds of, political appetites. And of course, it seems that Jordan Bardella is best placed to succeed, but is, as the other guests have already said, is very untested, is very young, not sure that it might be eventually the right person for that. But it is true, is quite popular amongst the electorate. The people voting for the National Rally, at least, and he is young. Macron, when elected the first time, was 39. He would be 31 if he runs and gets elected. So that would be very, very young by French political standards. So it's very uncertain. One thing is for sure, there will be some kind of challenge. I can't see Bardella just being the new candidate without anyone trying somehow at some point to challenge him, because yes, Marion Maréchal, who's now kind of a bit of a free riding outside, she got close to Éric Zemmour. Now she seems to be trying to get back to National Rally. There will be several people, I think, who will try, but I would still place, yes, my money on Bardella. Obviously, he's the party leader currently.
Okay, Lara, I'll come back to you in just a moment, but I just want to put something to Diane. For those of us who aren't familiar with the intricacies of French politics, as I understand it, Marine Le Pen can still continue as a member of Parliament despite this conviction. What happens if President Macron calls a snap election, which he's able to do from June? Would Le Pen's party risk bringing down the current government, as it helped to do in January, given that Le Pen would be barred from running if there was another election? And could she serve as Prime Minister if she manages to stay an MP and Jordan Bardella is elected president?
Yeah, so this is where it gets really fun, because you sort of see how everything is sort of interlinked and how much of a crisis this might become for the whole of French democracy. So the RN was sort of holding off on voting a vote of no confidence against the current PM. Who's to say whether they'll still do that now that they've been given this sanction? So they might vote a vote of no confidence, which would bring down the current government. This could lead Macron to either nominating someone else. It could lead him, once the year has passed, to calling another snap election, in which case she would not be able to run, because, unless by July she's managed to overturn the verdict, that seems very, very unlikely. So if there's a snap election, she wouldn't be able to run. The RN will run someone else, so we'll run a lot of other deputies, obviously, in her place. And if the RN end up winning the party, winning the election, it looks to me that she could potentially be selected as Prime Minister, because it's not an elected position. That would be a very odd thing for Emmanuel Macron to do. But what could happen is, if in the presidential election, the National Rally does win, and let's say Jordan Bardella becomes president, then he could choose to nominate her as PM, because that's not an elected position. but all of this is sort of all hypothetical.
Lara, something we haven't addressed yet is international reaction to Le Pen's conviction. What are we to make of the supportive comments from right-wing politicians elsewhere in Europe and from the Kremlin and from the United States?
Well, in January, President Macron talked about the rise of the reactionary international. And I think the reactions that we have seen to her conviction are really showing how much a reality this has become. Because every far-right nationalist populist politician, from Jair Bolsonaro to Donald Trump, to Matteo Salvini, who's especially close to Marine Le Pen, to Viktor Orban, to Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, and Maria Zakharova, the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman. All these people are just clamoring to say, as Orban said, "Je suis Marine." Like, remember the Charlie Hebdo massacre? Everyone was saying, "Je suis Charlie." So it's, he's identifying with her, Kurt Wilders as well. So this is an international movement. It's an international phenomenon. J.D. Vance made that very, very clear in Munich on Valentine's Day when he met with the head of the AfD, with Alice Weidel. He took a stand in a domestic election in Germany, which is quite a shocking thing for a U.S. vice president to do. These people are supporting each other. They're promoting each other's careers. Donald Trump said that what had happened to her was like what had happened to him. Zakharova, the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, said that we were seeing the death throes of liberal democracy, and which is quite chilling, and which could actually be true because these far-right parties are coming to power all over the world. I mean, even the South Korean president who was jailed, his supporters were wearing red MAGA hats and equating themselves with Trump supporters in the U.S. So I think had this happened 5 or 10 years ago, you would not have seen these international repercussions. This is a different world we're living in.
Philippe, would you agree with that? I need a pretty short answer from you, please. Less than a minute.
Yes, I agree with that, with what's been said. And I agree it's also a way to further undermine the rule of law, the main principles of democracy. So it's, again, the world is upside down. The world of politics is upside down, where, in fact, people who are undermining the rule of law pretend to work in defense of it. So that's really bizarre. So I fully agree that the far right is now out of the wood and in support of Le Pen, as you would expect. But of course, they want their intentions are not pure. They are there to achieve some business, and the business is, again, to undermine the rule of law, to undermine our main principle in our liberal democracies.
Okay. Many thanks indeed to you all, Diane De Vignemont, Philippe Marliere, and Lara Marlowe. And thank you for watching. You can see the programme again at any time by going to the website. You'll find that at aljazeera.com. For further discussion about this, you can join us at our Facebook page at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. And you can join the conversation on X. Our handle there at AJ Inside Story. From me, Adrian Finighan, and the team here in Doha. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again. Bye for now.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.